Good morning, students. Hello, everybody. Today we are going to solve in-text questions and exercises. First, we will solve in-text questions, and then we will go towards exercises. Question 1, asked in the text, is why do we classify organisms? It is but obvious. Solution we have discussed already, that number of organisms is huge. To study them separately, it is not possible for humankind. So, if we classify them, groupism can be made, and according to characteristics, when groups are made of an organism, it will be easy to study. So, this is line of thinking while solving the answer. Technically, there are a wide range of the life forms, about 10 million to 13 million species around us. These life forms have existed and evolved on the earth over millions of years ago. The huge range of these life forms makes it very difficult to study them one by one. Therefore, we look for similarities among them and classify them into different classes to study these different classes as a whole. Thus, classification makes our study easier. So, in the same line, what we have thought, the answer is. Let us go towards question number 2. Give 3 examples of the range of variations that you see in life forms around you. Answer of this question may vary. It is personal response type of question. Some of you may observe animals, some of you may differentiate between plants and animals, some of you may differentiate between bacteria and some other organisms. Likely, solution may vary, but line of the solution should be: example of range of variations observed in daily life are varieties of living organisms in terms of size ranges from microscopic bacteria to all trees of 100 meters. The color, shape and size of snakes are completely different from those of lizards. The lifespan of different organisms is also quite varied. For example, a crow lives for only 15 years, whereas a parrot lives for about 140 years. So these are the variations which are observed by the individual. Now you may write it differently. You may write, in case of plants, some of the plants are having 2 cotyledons in their seeds, some of the plants are having 1 cotyledon in their seed. You may write, some plants are giving flowers with bright color, some plants are giving flowers with no color, or say light color, they are not showy. You may say some plants pollen grains are lightweight, you may say some plants use pollen grains with sticky pollen grains. So it may vary according to you. It is personal response type of question. Then question 1 on some next page, it is, which do you think is a more basic characteristic for classifying organism? It is again basic question or personal type of question, personal response type of question. The place where you live, or the kind of cells they are made of. Why? So the solution is, the kind of cells that living organisms are made up of is a more basic characteristic for classifying organisms than on the basis of their habitat. This is because on the basis of the kind of cells, we can classify all living organisms into eukaryotes and prokaryotes. On the other hand, a habitat, means where we are living, or the place where an organism lives, is a very broad characteristic to be used as the basis for classifying organism. For example, animals that live on land includes earthworms, mosquitoes, butterfly, rat, elephant, tiger, etc. These animals do not resemble each other except for the fact that they share a common habitat. Therefore, the nature or kind of cells is considered to be fundamental characteristic for the classification of living organism. So you might have understood, in the same habitat many organisms are living. So classifying organisms on the basis of habitat is not feasible. Say I am living in Kalwan and somebody is living in Mumbai, for example. On the basis of that, can anybody classify me? Can anybody divide me? That you are Kalwan Kar, and or say you classify organism on the basis of Kalwan and Mumbai. So because the person who is living in Kalwan and who is living in Mumbai share other same characteristics, common characteristics. For example, I have one head, Mumbaikar also have one head, two hands, then I have two legs, same. So morphological as well as physiological characteristics will be same. So classification can't be made. And elephant, for example, the let us take another example. Say cow living in the Kalwan and cows living in the Mumbai. Is there any difference? So on the basis of places where they are living, we cannot classify the organisms. On the contrary, on the basis of some other characteristics like the kind of cell they are made up of, we can classify the organisms, isn't it? So this is question first. Question second is, what is the primary characteristics on which the first division of organism is made? The answer is, the primary characteristics on which the first division of organism is made is nature of the cells. It is considered to be the fundamental characteristic for classifying all living organisms. Nature of the cell includes the presence or absence of membrane bound organelles. Therefore, on the basis of fundamental characteristics, we can classify all living organisms into two broad categories of eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Then further classification is made on the basis of cellularity or mode of nutrition. So this is the answer we have discussed about already while classifying 5 kingdom system given by Whittaker. I told you which characteristics were used to classify the organisms. Question number 3. On what basis are plants and animals put into different categories? Plants and animals are kept in which categories? Different categories. How? According to Whittaker classification system, we have seen eukaryotic multicellular organisms are classified further from Protista. Then on the basis of cell wall present or cell wall absent, this was the characteristics to separate plants and animals from each other. Plants and animals, let us see what is given in solution. Plants and animals differ in many features such as absence of chloroplast, presence of cell wall, etc. But locomotion is considered as characteristic feature that separate animal from plant. This is because the absence of locomotion in plant gave rise to many structural changes such as the presence of cell wall for protection, the presence of chloroplast for photosynthesis, etc. Hence, locomotion is considered to be the basic characteristic. As further difference arose because of this characteristic feature. At the same time, in this question, we must remember that some plants, say algae, they are showing locomotion with the help of flagella. So, are we going to consider this locomotion as a characteristics? So, basically, cell wall is the basic characteristic which I feel we should consider while classifying plants and animals from each other, while separating plants and animals from each other. Next question is, which organisms are called primitive and how are they different from the so-called advanced organisms? This is very important question. Primitive and advanced organisms, I told you while classification. During classification, we have seen that left side, while classifying organisms, we write primitive organisms at left side and advanced organisms at right side. A primitive organism or lower organism is the one which has a simple body structure and ancient body design or features that have not changed much over a period of time. An advanced organism or higher organism has a complex body structure and organization. For example, an amoeba is more primitive as compared to starfish. Amoeba has a simple body structure and primitive features as compared to starfish. Hence, an amoeba is considered more primitive than starfish. So, this is the answer. So, this is the role of evolution played by nature to decide primitive or advanced organisms. In primitive organisms, the body design is very simple. In advanced organism, body design become complex. Question number 2, will advanced organisms be the same as complex organisms? Why? Solution for this question is, it is not always true that the advanced organisms will have complex body structure, but there is a possibility that over the evolutionary time, complexity in body design will increase. Therefore, at time, advanced organism can be the same as complex organisms. So, just now we have discussed about this. What is the criterion for classification of organism as belonging to kingdom Monera or Protista? Which characters we have used? We use prokaryotic and eukaryotic type of organisms. These characteristics. What is the solution? The criteria for classification of organisms belonging to kingdom Monera or Protista is the presence or absence of well-defined nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. Kingdom Monera includes organisms that do not have well-defined nucleus, that is, they are prokaryotes or membrane-bound organelles, and these are known as prokaryotes. Kingdom Protista, on the other hand, includes organisms with a well-defined nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, and those organisms are called eukaryotes. Question number 2, in which kingdom will you place an organism which is single-celled, eukaryotic and photosynthetic? Very importantly, now we have learned the art of classifying organisms on the basis of characteristics. So, we have first of all classified organisms into prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotes were kept in kingdom Monera. Eukaryotic organisms further divided into unicellular, photosynthetic. Unicellular were kept in prokaryote, and multicellular further divided into 3 groups, isn't it? So, kingdom Protista includes single-celled, eukaryotic and photosynthetic organisms. Question number 3, in the hierarchy of classification, hierarchy means ladder, which grouping will have the smallest number of organisms? Which grouping will have the smallest number of organisms with maximum of characteristics in common, and which will have the largest number of organisms? Some confusing question. Once again, we will read the question. In the hierarchy of classification, which grouping will have the smallest number of organisms with a maximum of characteristics in common, and which will have the largest number of organisms? Achha, you have to differentiate which will be the smallest group and which will be the largest group. In the hierarchy of classification, a species will have the smallest number of organisms with maximum characteristics in common, whereas the kingdom will have the largest number of organisms which will have less characteristics in common. Which division among plants has the simplest organism? So, solution is Thallophyta is the division of plants that have the simplest organisms. I told you primitive 2 organisms: Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. This is the sequence, primitive to advanced. So, which is the simplest organism? Obviously, Thallophyta is the primitive, so Thallophyta will be the simplest organisms. This group includes plants which do not contain a well differentiated plant body. Their body is not differentiated into root, stem and leaves. They are commonly known as algae. Question number 2, how are the pteridophytes different from the phanerogams? See, we have seen cryptogams and phanerogams, 2 categories. In cryptogams, gametes are small in size or hidden gametes are there, whereas in phanerogams, flower-like structures are present which can be seen. So, pteridophyte comes under cryptogams, and phanerogams means gymnosperms and angiosperms. So, straightway you have to differentiate between pteridophyta and gymnosperm and angiosperm. Gymnosperm and angiosperm can be considered together, and pteridophyta considering as cryptogams. Okay, so they pteridophytes, they have inconspicuous or less differentiated reproductive organs, whereas phanerogams, they have well developed reproductive organs. In case of pteridophytes, they produce naked embryo called spores, whereas in phanerogams they produce seeds. Examples of pteridophyte are fern, Marsillia, Equisetup, etc. Whereas in phanerogams, Pinus, Cycas, phanerogams, fir, etc. are examples of phanerogams. In case of phanerogams, you can write flowering plants also as an example. Let us go towards next question. Question number 3. How do gymnosperms and angiosperms differ from each other? So gymno means naked seeds and angios means seeds enclosed in the fruits, that is they are flowering plants. So let us see the solution. It's very simple question now for you. Gymnosperms, they are non-flowering plants. Angiosperms, they are flowering plants. In case of gymnosperms, naked seeds not enclosed inside fruits are produced, whereas in angiosperm seeds are enclosed inside fruits. Examples of gymnosperms are pinus, cedar, fir, cycas, etc. Even thuja. I told you example in front of our infirmary, in our school, in front of our infirmary, near that basketball ground, that bushes, they are plant thuja. They are gymnosperms. You might have seen their seeds. Naked seeds are present. In case of angiosperms, all the flowering plants you can consider, you can take into the consideration coconut, palm, mango, hibiscus, rose are some examples of angiosperms. So up to this, it was kingdom plantids in text questions. For rest of the questions we will see in next video lecture. Henceforth, the questions of animalia will start, that we are going to see in next video lecture. Till the time, just go through these questions. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.